So in the previous tutorials, we've had an opportunity to talk about census, conversion, importing, validation. Now we're actually going to dive in and see an actual sample so you can see how those pieces work together to form the workflow for age rating. So what you see here is our conversion template. So this is the template we're going to use both to capture census information and rate table data. So if we take a look, the first tab is the census. So you get an idea of the information we have. Again, it's a row-based census. So we're going to have the employee followed by dependents. We're going to indicate for each person whether they're an employee or dependent. We're still going to identify enrollment types and date of birth. So that really becomes our census information that we're going to use in terms of capturing the employee data that we need to be able to calculate premiums off of. Now the next step of that is being able to convert our rates from the renewals or the quotes, and that's what each one of these tabs represents, is a different formatted PDF conversion. And we currently support well in excess of 100 of them. So this is the master template. As a workflow, agencies normally design a custom one where they remove off all of the carriers that don't apply. So an agency template, normally a working one, will have the census and just the carriers, rates, and renewal formats that you work with. And we can see that for each one of these, the yellow represents where we're going to paste the information we copy out of the quote. And then we get a picture of the actual rate table from that quote, just as an identifier that what we're actually copying and pasting. So that's the blank conversion template. Now we're going to take a look at one that's been completed. So here is the census information where we have our employer, we have our effective date. Again, notice how the employee is followed right behind by each dependent. So this gives you an idea of what a completed census looks like. Now the next step is, in our sample, we are going to build out two proposed UHC options. So the key is that for each plan that we want to work with for that employer, we are going to need a conversion tab, so there's a one-to-one relationship. Now in our case, we have two United Healthcare plans that we want to build out for this employer, so that's going to require two UHC rate table conversions down here. So let's go to the first UHC rate table. So yellow really is information that we are entering in as the user. So we can see here that we've got our carrier name. Here's where we're putting in our medical plan name or code, which in this case is a PW3, our RX plan name or code, which is an NS. So this is important because when we convert this and import it into Dynamis, it's going to be checking to see if we have a medical plan that matches this name or code or an RX plan that matches that name or code. So these tie directly to the plans we have either built out in our library or in Dynamis, or in terms of the plans that we are going to build out. All right. Now, in the UHC case, we actually are forced to take multiple rate tables, as you see in the sample below. That's just part of how this quote is formatted. So in cases where we have to take multiple rate tables, we'll see an identifier that says which plan, in this case 1 through 5. All right. Well, in our case, we're going to see that the rate table that we want is the second one. So we're using a 2 to identify the second rate table. And then max number of children to calculate, the default is 3, but there are some carriers who only use 2 children as a maximum for the family rate that they build. All right. So now that we have our census information, we want to get the rate table from the UHC PW3 medical NS plan. So I'm going to go ahead to our UHC quote. Right. So here's a sample UHC quote. Notice 64-page quote PDF. Right. So again, the whole conversion process is around these terrible formats. So the idea is that we want to get all the way to the back. This actually occurs on page 34, where we actually get the rate tables, which is what we're looking for. So if I take a look again at my template, we can see what we're actually selecting. We're taking right above the less than 21. And in this particular rate table, they can't even fit all of the age bands on one page. So you can kind of get a visual of that there's actually going to be, for this format, 2 copies and pastings that we'll have to do. So now that I know what to copy and paste, I come back to my quote, and I'm going to take exactly what it shows me on the picture. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to come back into my template now, and I'm going to come right over here to the yellow section and paste those. All right, so now I've got that. Again, we've got the rest of the rate tables we've got to copy. That's going to go down here. So I'm going to go back, come down to our final page, which is right here, and grab the rest of those rate tables. So again, following the guide that's provided in the screenshot. So now I'm going to come in, put in that second set of rates, and I'm done. On to the next one. Now I want a VH1 R2. With these big PDF documents, Control F becomes your friend, and I'm going to search for, let's see here, we're going to search for plan VH1 R2. So I'm going to go ahead and look for VH1 and search for that. I don't want that one. This is the one I actually want right here. We can see the VH1 with R2. So I'm going to follow that exact same workflow. I'm going to start at the top, grab the first set of rates, copy it, come over here, paste that in. And again, we still have to get our final rate bands in this section right here for this format. So I'm going to come down to the next page and grab the final rates, copy those, and again, paste them right there. So now I'm done. I've got the medical plan name and code and the rate tables for my 2 UHC plans. So at this point now, I want to save this conversion template. This is the sheet we're going to use to convert. So again, envision if I had 10 UHC plans I wanted to load in, I would need that same UHC rate table tab, one for each of the plans with each of the rate tables that we want to load in. All right, so now that we've got our conversion template done, it's time to actually go into the dashboard. So I'm in a sample employer here. I'm under medical. I'm going to add new coverage periods, and for purposes of this exercise, we're going to say there's no existing coverage. So this is really going to be like we're proposing new plans that would become effective in January 1. Now the key is that when you're in the dashboard and setting up your coverage periods, this community rated checkbox is the one that's going to tell the system to prepare for at least some of the plans to be age rated. Now, not all the plans need to be age rated. We can have commingle age rating and composite rating. But since we've got at least some age rated plans, I'm going to check community rated. So now I'm going to go ahead and create. We still work with enrollment types, so I'm going to add employee, spouse, and children for 4 tiers. We really don't support classes when it comes to age-rated plans. So while you see this option, it really wasn't designed to work with age rating. Now that I've got my enrollment types, I'm going to click Finish. And notice now I come to this Census tab under Coverage Period Setup. So because it's community rating, this tab is taking us to the workflow we need to get those community rated plans, those age rated plans loaded in. And you'll notice there's 2 sections, converting and importing. Well, the first step is to convert. And now that we have our conversion template done, we can go ahead and convert it. You'll also notice a link where we store the most recent version of both our conversion and import template. So you won't need to download these on a regular basis, but when we add new carrier formats, we upload the template so that agencies that are waiting for their specific carrier formats have a way to go in and get the new template. So now that we've got our conversion template saved, we're going to click the Convert button. We're going to select that conversion template we saved, and it's actually creating our import template. So here's the document where it actually creates our import template. Okay, so you'll notice now we have each individual employee. We have their employee independent premium for each of the two plans that we loaded in. So the next step is really going to be to come back to the system and import those rates based on that import template that we just created. So I'm going to go ahead and click import, use our import that we just created, and now it's pulling that information into Dynamis. So the key is here that this really brings us to the validation screen. And what's happening is it's recognizing that carrier, medical, and RX plan name or code exists and is created in our library, whether it's at the agency library or if we just created it for this employer. So if one of these was incorrect, if we had made a mistake on our conversion and put UHD for the carrier, this would be red, and the key is that we can make modifications from here. So here I can access my carrier dropdown and go find the correct one. Same with the medical plan. If it didn't recognize this medical plan name or code, I could go into the dropdown and find the ones that are available and even create a new one right from here. So that's really the idea of validation, is that if we have a mistake or we have a medical or RX plan not created, we're able to clearly identify it from here and make changes from here without having to exit out of the workflow. But now that we have all green, we know that all our carrier, our medical, and RX plans are identified. We can go ahead and click Complete Import. And now that I've completed the import, if we scroll down, we can see under our census that everybody has now been pulled into Dynamis. So now in the next step, we're going to walk through, now that we've uploaded these two UHC plans and their employee independent cost, how it looks to actually use those plans as we build them out in Dynamis.